huge detriment. We're misrepresented in the bigger mainstream of atheist community, because that's not who the hell we are.
Right.
Because from what I've seen, I mean, I don't know too many detractors who take his side, but I know that he has a lot because he's a popular dude on YouTube. But he's not like an atheist activist. I've been to probably 30 or 40 conventions, atheist conferences and stuff, and I've never met the guy. I mean, I don't have an interest to. If I met him, that'd be fine. But if not, that's not something I'm worried about. But him and his followers are not representative of atheism as I know it.
And I think they, my understanding is that they kind of do their own thing. But, I think there's a whole crowd of, wouldn't necessarily say all their names, but I think there's a whole crowd that kind of goes in the vein of the Amazing Atheist, of, YouTubers who are kind of like, you don't necessarily see them at conventions. They don't really seem representative of the atheist community. Sometimes they spout off, things that seem sort of sexist or racist, sort of disturbing. But at the same time, when I'm hanging around my friends, my atheist friends, locally here, and when I go to a convention, like you're saying, I don't see supporters of these people.
Yeah, I mean, they're not activists. They're not anybody who's trying to go out there and do anything. They're just people who don't believe in God, and they think it's funny to watch some asshole flip out on YouTube every now and then. So they call themselves, they're like armchair atheist fans, I guess. Not really activists or concerned with any kind of real positive change or anything.
And what irritates me too is, a lot of people talk about how social justice activists are trying to co-opt atheism, and atheism is just about a lack of belief in God or gods. But they only bring that up when we're responding to sexist or racist views that people try to co-opt into atheist culture, right? Like,
yep, you're absolutely correct.
So I've noticed this repeatedly. If somebody tries to co-opt sexist or racist views into among atheist culture, then it's fine. Like, nobody says, well, that doesn't have anything to do with atheism, for the most part. But when people respond to it and say, no, we don't stand for racism, no, we don't stand for sexism, all of a sudden, people are like, wait, you're in an atheist space, you're not allowed to say that. It's a infuriatingly double standard, I think.
Yep. Yeah, you're right, man. So as far as this spat goes, like, I know that he's like supposed to be responding here sooner. Like, you had a 5-hour private conversation. Do you have any hope that he's going to come around? Or is he just a stubborn fuck? Or do you think he just might be doing this just to keep his audience around? Or what do you think is going to happen in the next few days?
I don't know. I think based on what I've heard from him recently, and this is kind of interesting, like, there is so much, I don't think even he knows how outside the pale he is, because he has hundreds of thousands of people who watch his videos. He thinks that he's kind of more or less partially the face of atheism. So it seems like he's somewhat taken aback by the support that I've been getting around the atheist community.
He's very comfortable in his privilege, right?
Yeah, but he's kind of taken aback by the support I've been getting from the atheist community. And so because of that, he's concocted this conspiracy theory that somehow we're trying to take down his YouTube channel, apparently.
Jesus Christ.
That we planned this all out in advance, and this is a coordinated attack. When there's nothing coordinated, there's just a lot of people who don't agree with what he's saying.
Right.
So I think it's interesting how even he has underestimated the lack of support in the general atheist community for his stance, and his underestimation is so bewildering to him that he has to make up a wild conspiracy theory. I don't know what he's concocting, but there's really no evidence for it, and it just seems absolutely crazy to me. I don't know what to make of it, but I guess I'll find out in the next few days if he actually goes through with it.
So if he's taking this conspiracy theory angle, there's probably not a whole lot of hope of him coming around, you don't think?
Oh, as far as him coming around, he used to be a bit different. There was a YouTuber who was a bit more racist than even he is, who he once called out as racist a few years ago, my understanding is. And then they had some discourses, and eventually he came around to this other atheist way of thinking. So I think his mind is able to be changed with some facts and some dialogue, but at this point I think at one point maybe, and when we were having the conversation, towards the middle of the conversation, I could see that we were actually having a conversation wherein, like, I was trying to understand him, he was trying to understand me, even though we didn't agree. Okay. By the end of the conversation, and I think at this point, at least for me personally, I don't think I'm going to be able to convince him. I think he's so upset at me personally, and he's so afraid about his YouTube channel being labeled as racist that he's kind of beyond listening to me, which is unfortunate because I really did invest a lot of time in trying to build a bridge. So
yeah, that's too bad because somebody who has that reach that he does with atheism, he could do so much good with it.
Right.
And he has his self-interest more at heart than trying to understand another perspective. He'd rather keep his YouTube channel going and his fans appeased than humble himself and understand that he could be wrong here.
Yeah, and in all fairness too, like if he actually did apologize, he would probably lose a lot of listeners. He'd lose a lot of fans, that type of thing.
Sure, I think he might gain a lot more.
But he would gain a lot. So I mean, it's just one of those. But it is discouraging how much. So I remember this interview that James Baldwin said, and he was like, I don't know if white people back in the 60s or 70s, he was saying, I don't know if white people hate me, but I know that we have a church which is black and a church which is white. I know the most segregated hour in the United States is high noon on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
So in Christianity, there has been that divide developed between the white church and the black church. And there's very, deep pain there. And so as we're becoming increasingly secular here in Western society. And so it would be great if we could transition, as people start leaving their churches and start going more and more to secular spaces. It would be great if we could transition into a culture in which we're listening to each other, in which we can be more blended in which black culture can trust that white culture is going to listen to their experiences instead of dismissing them as a victim cult. And what I'm starting to see a lot more in atheism is that black atheists are finding it more and more necessary to create their own spaces in atheist culture, which I think is a good thing. It's necessary, but at the same time, insofar as it's necessary because they're not being listened to, because they're not being heard, that's disturbing. And I think the Amazing Atheist, to your point, could do a whole lot of good there. Not necessarily by just blindly agreeing, but with everything that a black person says, which I think sometimes, what I'm arguing for is misconstrued as that. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying at least listening and showing that they're listening, as opposed to dismissing all their concerns as, victim cult statements.
Sure.
If he did that, he would create a conversation, he would bridge a divide, and he would enable us to move away from what seems to be forming as far as, black atheism versus white atheism. Now, he's just one corner of atheism. He could do a lot of good there, but even if he doesn't, I think that we can still try to work to try to bridge that gap. But it's unfortunate he's not doing more.
Are you familiar with Tony Penn?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I heard him give a talk at Skepticon, I think maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, where he was talking about how they can increase diversity and people of color in the atheist community. Uh-huh. I know you said you did get a lot of support for your position and stuff, but is there anything that you think atheism as a community and as a movement activists can do to help welcome minorities and build our numbers amongst minority communities?
I think a big first step is to listen. And, the difficult thing about this is that, black people in this country have a very long history, right? Of society not really following through on a lot of its promises.
Right. We
thought slavery was it, and then came segregation. And then, along with segregation, we thought we got voting rights, and then there came voting tests. We got rid of segregation, and then there came a fairly clearly racist agenda from a lot of the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
So, society has promised a lot of things to black individuals, and the list goes on from there. Those are just examples. Like, society has promised a lot of things to black individuals and hasn't delivered. So there's a lot of mistrust there. There's a lot of hesitation. And I don't think that the distrust is going to, you can't make, after about 300, if you can imagine, like, if you and your ex broke up 350 years ago and, she's been doing shady stuff all that time and she goes to somebody and is like, okay, how can I get them to trust me? It's not going to be like, it's not going to be like,
really good point.
It's not going to be like, okay, tomorrow, if you go and you give them flowers, they're going to be like, okay, awesome, you're back in. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take a little bit of listening. It's going to take some developing and understanding. But if we kind of think of it in that way, eventually we can work towards an understanding. But if you keep developing that, if you keep validating the original reasons why Black culture can't trust society, then it's going to take even longer, and it may never really, materialize.
Okay. Well, that's really well said, man. That's actually very eye-opening. I appreciate that perspective. It helps a lot. Okay, so where can people find you then if they want to check out your stuff?
I'm on Barrier Breaker on Patheos. So the Patheos.
Your blog is called Barrier Breaker?
My blog is called Barrier Breaker. Yeah. So that's pretty much where I have my stuff. I'm also on Facebook, so you can hit me up there, follow my page. I post different things on there, so that would be awesome too.
So it's Martin Hughes on Facebook and Barrier Breaker on Patheos.
Well, no, it's going to be Barrier Breaker on Facebook too. That's the name of my page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
Yeah. So
awesome. All right. Well, thanks for being on, Martin.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, there's my interview with Martin Hughes. If you want to read more from Martin, you can check out his community page on Facebook. Just look up Barrier Breaker. That's one word. Barrier Breaker is a community page on Facebook. Or just go to patheos.com and search for Barrier Breaker. I'll put a link to his blog in the show notes. Check him out. He's got a lot of really good stuff to say. All right, that's going to just about wrap it up for this 9th episode of Adamant Atheism. One quick side note, though. Past few weeks, ever since I've been getting a lot heavier into actual activism, there have been some people who have been throwing this label SJW at me. It kind of cracks me up, because first of all, SJW means social justice warrior. And they're intending this as supposed to be an insult. And I'm just trying to figure out why on earth is somebody who passionately fights and advocates for social justice is a bad thing. I just want equality and love for everybody, regardless of race, gender, or sexual preference. Why that's a bad thing, I don't know. I asked some Facebook friends, and I got very different answers, but I don't care. You want to call me an SJW? Don't give a fuck. I kind of wear it proudly. Yes, I do love everybody, and everybody should be treated equal. Maybe I'm just weird like that. Whatever. Anyway, everyone, thanks for listening this time. If you want to check me out, I'm on patreon.com at Adamant Atheism if you want to throw a couple bucks to help support the show. If you want to get in touch with me sometime and send any feedback, criticism, or whatever, I'm at adamantatheism@gmail.com. You can find the Facebook page, Adamant Atheism, is a community page, or just find me on Facebook. My name is Adam Collins. Send me a message or a friend request, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Adam is phenomenal, or something.